Hey, hope you are doing fine, having a great day. Before the start of the episode, I want to talk about the weekly picks, the gentleman weekly pick. Yes, and this time we have the Rolex 1003 Oyster Perpetual, a vintage Rolex Oyster Perpetual. And recently, Rolex, as you may have known, put out a bunch of new colored Oyster Perpetual. And in my opinion, the old ones are always the best looking. And what's better than owning a vintage watch, a vintage Rolex from Bob's Watches, right? They cross-examine all their vintage watches at the best price, at the best deal. And if you buy it now, within the next 15 minutes, literally click the link in bio, you can get $165 off. And this vintage watch is priced at around 3K. So in really good condition, really nice watch, silver with a beige dial, kind of off-white dial. So go check it out, guys. I highly recommend this 34 millimeters Oyster Perpetual vintage. Okay, let's roll the clip. Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to another episode of the Gentleman Pursuits podcast. My name is Ryan. Hope everyone's staying healthy, staying hydrated, staying in, wearing a mask, and having a good day. Today we have with us a very special guest in my heart. This gentleman is the first ever person I've interviewed for the Tales from the Gram series, and he is easily one of the craziest collectors that I've ever known. Please welcome Chris, aka Toich, on Instagram. How are you doing, Chris?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, it's such a pleasure to be finally speaking to you. You live in New York City, yeah?
Yep, I live in New York now. Yeah.
How's everything in New York?
So the city is reopening little by little. It's still okay. People are wearing masks, so this is positive.
Okay.
Schools are reopening this month, so okay, life is coming back. So
Okay,
so far so good.
Okay, what do you usually like to do when like in your spare time? Like, is there?
Well, it's playing. Most of the time I'm playing with my kid. I'm trying to spend the maximum of time with him.
Okay, that's good.
Riding bicycle, playing board games, playing at home, and then going out and cycling with him, playing soccer. No, yeah, it's like a normal dad's life. I'm very happy with my family and spending time.
A really healthy one. A really healthy one. I like it.
Yeah.
Where are you from? Sorry, if you don't mind me asking.
So I'm from France. From Paris.
Oh.
And I came to New York many years ago, about like 12 years ago.
Oh damn! I really want to go to Paris. It's like one of the top locations that I want to travel to.
Yeah, you should go there. And I spent a couple of weeks there this summer, and when I went back, I was like, wow, it's so nice. Paris is really, really nice. So if you don't know Paris, you should go there. Yeah, it's really great.
Okay, so obviously today we are here to talk about watches. Yeah, so why don't we start with something more introductory? Why don't you tell us how did you get into watch collecting? Because I believe everyone had that like one moment where they realized that, oh, this is what I'm into, this is what I like. So how did you get into watch collecting?
Okay, so the funny thing is when I was a kid, I don't know why, but I was very interested in watches. I was really looking, on display, when I was in the street, I was really interested. Mostly when I was a kid, it was a Swatch was my big passion. So I was spending like half an hour or 1 hour just looking at watches, but I was never buying. I was purely just watching. And I loved that. And I was not wearing watches. And this is a funny part because I never felt, this need to wear a watch. It's purely the aesthetic
Yes.
And also the mechanical part. I love
Yes.
mechanic, and the funny thing is I loved when Swatch issued those mechanical watches. I don't know if you remember, but that was like a big step. You know, I saw this new type of movement, and I was like,
Yes.
wow, there's no battery inside. It's like working by itself. It's mechanical.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
And that was like a first phase. And in my grandparents' house, my grandpa used to have like antique clocks. So what we call like a
Okay.
Napoleon style clocks in each
Yes.
room.
Yes.
And I was spending like a lot of time trying to see, you know, the movement, just trying to figure out, you know, how it was working. And I love those clocks. And then time flies, and I never really bought watches, you know. and I was still
Yeah.
spending a lot of time, you know, checking catalog, those type of things, but that's it.
Yeah.
And when I came to New York 12 years ago, I was still looking, you know, at the Tourneau, Wempe, you know, like the big retail shop.
Yes.
And at that point, I was still feeling this interest, you know, and the funny thing is, one day, so I guess it started 8 or 9 years ago.
Yes.
I got this huge interest in pocket watches. Yeah. So my first passion is really about Breguet pocket watches. So I will tell you the story. It's I was like just spending some time on the French Craigslist. We call it Le Bon Coin, and I was looking for a Breguet watch. So you can tell me, you can ask me why Breguet. Breguet, since I was a kid, I was looking at, you know, all the catalog watches, and I knew Breguet was like the main player in pocket. For me, the main players in pocket watches. And for me, that was like a reference. That was the best, purely due to this story. So I will tell you later about my passion for Breguet. But and I wanted, just by curiosity, just to see if anyone somewhere in France was selling a Breguet pocket watch. And on that day, I was lucky, I guess, but one person in France was selling this gold Breguet pocket watch, and I contacted him, and that was the first expensive watch, or the first watch I was buying.
Ooh, okay.
So that was a big commitment, and I was like, wow, this is like a gold pocket watch. This is crazy. Do I need to do it or not? And then I bought it, and I received it, and I was really lucky, because I will tell you, there are so many fake Breguet pocket watches. Many of them are very old, but to find like an authentic Breguet pocket watch, I guess I was lucky on that day. And what I did, I contacted Breguet. So Emmanuel Breguet is in charge of archives in Paris. I sent him pictures and serial number, and then he came back to me with a certification, with the watch history, and he told me quickly, okay, the watch should be like that, in gold, 18 karat, full hunter.
Wow.
It was manufactured on this year, sold to Mr. blah 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 in France for this amount of money. So on that day, I discovered that Breguet kept history of each watch in their archives. So I say thank you to Emmanuel Breguet. That was great. And on that day, I was like, wow, this is so great, and I love Breguet. And I decided to look for other pocket watches, other Breguet pocket watches. That was my passion for like 4 years. I did my best to find like the maximum of Breguet pocket watches. So I was not buying like the 18th century Breguet pocket watches because they were too expensive. So I was focusing really on the early 20th century or late 19th century. But I was so happy with those watches. So I bought one when my son was born. I bought one for my wedding. So these were really like the milestone in my life. I was like, okay, I want one Breguet pocket watch for each important event in my life. So I started getting a couple of pocket watches. So I was really happy. And then one day I bought like a new type of Breguet pocket watch. This is like a deck chronometer. This is like a pocket watch being used by the French army, in the naval, on the French ships. So those Breguet watches, those Breguet deck chronometers are really rare. They come with a nice wood box. And those watches are 24 hours dial with a black dial. So they're really like unique. And I bought one of these and I fell in love with the style and also with this aspect, the military aspect of those watches. So it was engraved on the back, Marine Nationale Aéronautique Navale. And the same on the wood box. And this is when I really got my interest in military watches, starting from the pocket watch.
Okay.
You see, so I really started from my Breguet passion, then switching from pocket watches to those Type 20. Because when I started discovering those aeronautic naval watches, I got more interested in, what was really the involvement from Breguet in military watches? So I tried to find the maximum of information, and I had, so maybe it started like 4 or 5 years ago, I had this chance to find my first Type 20. I was not, and I found it in Italy. I was very happy, and I just before buying it, I did my due diligence, trying to make sure it was a good one, trying to get the maximum of information, and I bought it, and I received it, and I was very, very happy, and I was very surprised with the size. The size is very like it's not a big watch, it's like a very clean, easy to wear, small watch, and I was really impressed with that because it's not like a huge tool watch,
Is it one of the Type 20s?
Yeah, that was a Type 20. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is how I started collecting, and as you can see, I started really collecting with pocket watches. And this is surprising because when I speak with people, they always think I'm just like collecting Type 20, but no, my first passion was really Breguet pocket watches, due to this Breguet history.
Right. So before you bought your first pocket watch from Breguet, have you ever owned any other watches, or did you actually got into the watch collecting scene with pocket watches?
Yeah. So when I was a kid, I got a couple of watches, like quartz watches. Most of them were like no-name watches.
Yeah.
Like gift from my parents or friends. Then I remember I got a swatch one day. So it took me so many hours just to decide which one I would pick.
Yeah.
That was, and the funny thing, it was one with it was a swatch with a like a chronograph inside. There was like a special function from a swatch where you could press the button and it will set like the chronograph. So the main minutes and hour hand will switch to the 12 marker, and it would transform like the regular hands into chronograph hands. And I loved activating this chronograph for nothing, just timing something, so that was cool. But that's it, and except that, I never really got any other watches except that.
Okay. So like pocket watches. Oh yeah.
One thing I can add, because it's interesting, when my grandpa passed away, what I asked was to get one antique clock, and I got one Napoleon style clock in my bedroom. So you can imagine, I was like 12 or 13 years old. I had this clock in my bedroom with a bell, striking every hour and half an hour. And I was doing my best to fix it, because sometimes there were some issues in the number of strikes. So I was a kid. I did not know anything in watchmaking, but I was doing my best just to repair it and to find information. So this is where, you see, I was more into watchmaking mechanical aspects at the time. And starting with clock, pocket watches, and then wristwatches.
That's really cool. That's really cool, because one thing I'd say majority of people getting into watch collecting nowadays are simply because of the look of it. I mean, maybe they like the mechanical aspect of it as well, but not a lot of people have the actual chance to dive into details into the mechanical parts of the watch. And that's like really cool thing that you actually did that as a kid. And I got a question, is that, so you started out as like you collected a lot of the Breguet pocket watches, then you turn into Breguet Type 20s, right? So between the two collection, which one do you like more, like pocket watches or Type 20s?
No, to be honest, no preference.
Okay.
I love both, but to tell you, my big pleasure is really to take to have a look at my collection. So I spend time just getting all my watches and spending time looking at my watches, winding them, whatever, if it's a pocket watch or my Type 20. I have so much pleasure just looking at them. Yeah, this is so great.
Okay, but what's about Type 20? Because Type 20 is a type of pilot watch, if for people that may not know. So what's about Type 20 that stands out from other pilot watches? Because let's say for myself, I like Oris or IWC when it comes to pilot watches. I love Breguet too, but to you, what's special about Breguet Type 20s?
So for me, what I like is really the history. So first, it's knowing that such a brand like a Breguet. So Breguet has been known for many years for this classic style, luxury pieces being provided to Napoleon, Marie Antoinette. So ready for wealthy people. This was the excellence in watchmaking. And for such a brand, suddenly in the 50s, to decide to reply, to this French Air Force specs, this is interesting to see how suddenly such a brand can decide to diversify and to decide to commit and to answer to the specification request from the army. So I find it very interesting, because it's not like Breguet has been building some or manufacturing tool watches for years. No, it's suddenly it's like a big change, in how Breguet was able to diversify. Now, in terms of reason on why at that point Breguet decided to do that, I don't have answers yet. But it's more for Emmanuel Breguet to answer to that, but maybe they had a need, to diversify, to get some revenues or extra revenues on the side. Maybe at that time, that was not the best time for Breguet, maybe. But what I like is for Breguet, starting from this pocket watches, luxury brand, then switching also, one part of the family started manufacturing airplanes. So there are well-known Breguet Atlantic or Breguet aircraft. Then a separate part of the family started manufacturing telegraph and all communication tools at that time. And suddenly they decided also to start this military watches. So this is what I liked, for such a brand to diversify. But now, to be honest, if we take like the specs, between a Breguet Type 20 or Dodan or Vixa and all the other Type 20 types, I love all the other Type 20. They are all great and they have all their own style. One of them is really similar to Breguet, so it, I guess, Mate Tissot. So they are like absolutely like the same in terms of case, dial, hands. So they are really similar. It's just Mate has been building those watches for Breguet, so they were able also to create their own. That's why. But I really love all those military watches, to be honest. I just decided to focus on Breguet purely because my passion is really towards Breguet.
Right.
You can see it's really starting. My whole collection is really starting on this Breguet passion.
Right, exactly. Because Breguet, to me, has always been a brand, weirdly, that I associate that has two identities. Because as you stated just now, one is through Daniel Roth's collection that brought us back to the pocket watch style, the classic complication series, which is what made Breguet into the brand it is today. And another one's the war, like the pilot watches, the army watches. So it's like really, really polar opposite aesthetic, right? One is like elegant, high class. Another one is rugged and just functionality, which is also what I love about Breguet. And because from the interview we've done before, you mentioned that you mentioned something that is really memorable to me. You told me that you actually contacted some pilots from the war, veterans that wore the Type 20 watches, right?
Yeah.
Like you actually sat down with them and had conversation. Well, yeah. Tell me what did they tell you? Because I'm really interested in that as well.
Yeah. So when I decided to collect those watches, at that time, it was really difficult to find one. Just one was really difficult. So I was trying to see where I could find any. And so I did the same. I tried on my French Craigslist, but I couldn't find any there. Yeah. So what I did, I went online and I just tried to find those former pilots association. And I found a couple of websites with like a contact names, and I contacted some people managing those websites. And the thing, most of the time, so my first question, to be honest, to them was, okay, do you own any Type 20? So
straightforward.
My first goal was to try to find one, and all the pilots, all the people I contacted, they all told me the same answer: no, I don't have my Type 20. I had to give it back to the army. So none of them was able to keep it, and they all told me, okay, that's sad, but I had to. So they had to give their helmet back and the watch and all the military gear had to go back to the army. It was like a, I don't know, like a military secret defense. And And the sad part of that is many of them, they told me the same thing. They told me, okay, each time they had to give it back, the watchmaker from the army had to take it and destroy it with the armor.
Oh.
So it was
Okay.
like, so what they told me is that like the watchmaker had a bucket, he was smashing the watch and placing it into the bucket, and with all the watches destroyed. So you can imagine, you know, when I heard that, I was so sad.
Yeah. Yeah, that broke my heart too. What?
Yeah. And what they mention is the only cases when those pilots were able to keep it were in exceptional events. For example, when they had near-death experience, when they had to eject from their aircraft, when they had like a huge success in a battle, something like that. But overall, it seems it was so rare to be able to keep it. And the other possibility was, they told me, some people were able to keep their watches because they pretended they lost it. So they.
Oh, right.
That was maybe so. I guess those pilots, you know, for many years they never really highlighted that to the army. But it explains, given like the limited number of produced Type 20 during that time. So the first version, it was only 2,000 military Type 20, and the second version, you know, the Marine Nationale, it was produced at 500. So given that, what I know now, given most of them were destroyed, I understand now how limited, you know, the
Really
remaining
rare.
pieces. Yeah. So then I'm not rude, you know, so I also try to ask questions to those pilots. So most of them, you know, they were telling me that, okay, they were using those watches as watches, but they had all the tools in their aircraft. So they did not really need, you know, when flying, they didn't really need their watches to fly and to use a stopwatch or the chronometer really when they were flying. What I can imagine is, in case if they had any issue, if they had to eject from the aircraft, or if they were alone just with their watch, they could have used it. Or if there's any issue with the equipment on board, okay, they could use it. But the truth is, okay, when they were flying, most of the time they didn't really have to use that. What I understand, because let's imagine it was still they were produced in the early or mid 50s, and they were used till the 80s. So aircraft at that time were really well equipped.
Right.
They were not like a World War I aircraft, you know, from late from 1918, like the end of the war. But no, you know, it was mid 50s, so I guess it was still aircraft at that time were well equipped.
Okay.
And so that was it. And one day, one person contacted me, asking question about the Marine Nationale watch he was owning. And I asked some questions. I was very surprised to see someone with a Marine Nationale watch. And he told me he was a former aeronaval pilot. So that was amazing, because that was the first time one former pilot still had his Type 20. And that was so amazing, you know, because based on all the previous comments or feedbacks I got, it was impossible. And this pilot told me that when he had to leave the army, the watchmaker proposed him to keep it. So I guess he was lucky.
He was very lucky, and you're very lucky.
Yeah, so he was very lucky, and he kept it. And then he left the army, and he became a pilot for Air France. And he kept his watch and wearing it on a daily basis as a regular watch, without realizing it was such a rare watch at this point. But for him, it has been his watch for life. It was like a tool watch for him. And the good thing, this pilot came to New York for vacation. So we met in New York, and he brought the watch, and I was able to see, this authentic Breguet Marine Nationale Type 20. And the funny thing is, I saw that the couple of parts were changed by the army. Like the loom was redone by the army. So this is why this is like a secondary topic, but what is an authentic military watch? And I spend a lot of I spend a lot of time speaking with people, because sometimes they ask me, okay, I'm sending you pictures, can you tell me if it's authentic? And I'm always trying to tell them, okay, there's no such question or concept of authentic military watch, because by definition, those watches have been used for so many years, and they had to be serviced maybe every 18 months for 12 years. And the watchmaker at that time, they were replacing parts every time they were servicing the watches. So it was normal for the watch to have new ends, a new crown, a new bezel.
Right.
You see? So the good thing, when I saw this watch from this former pilot, I noticed like the loom was really green. And nowadays, when we see like a greenish loom on a military watch, many people are saying, okay, this is like a real loom, and so it's not authentic. But okay, this watch is authentic. It's really directly coming from the army, and you see, this is like that, and you just need to accept it. You won't get the original ends from 1954. No, and it makes sense. If it's purely a tool watch being serviced frequently, if the main concept is to get a functioning in extreme condition watch, you need to replace parts, and you don't care about changing the loom or relooming at that point. No, that was normal. And this is why this is what I like with those military watches, because it's not a luxury watch. And for many years, for many years, they were not luxury watches, and they are still not luxury watches. They are military watches, so they gained in value. Okay, but if there's a scratches, if there's a ding on the military watches, it's good.
Yes.
That's why this is why I like Breguet, because by those Breguet and also military watches, because I don't care about scratches, dings, or bumps, or anything on my military watches.
Right. Yeah. It's because that's exactly what I said as well. In the last episode where I talked about the Breguet watch, where vintage watch back then, it's just a tool you have to wear every day while flying the plane. But now we view them as luxury watches, and I personally think that Breguet, even though they have such rich history and each watch has their own really unique story, Breguet is seriously undervalued at the moment. I feel like not a lot of people understand how valuable this brand is, and right, because they are currently priced a little bit higher than JLC, and just right under AP, Patek, and Vacheron, and that is partially due to the lack of branding push committed by the Swatch Group, I think, because the Swatch doesn't really, didn't do a lot for Breguet. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, so I totally agree. Breguet has been well known in the past for all its innovations, and Breguet is still innovating. So they had this magnetic pivot a couple of years ago. So they had a great innovation, but they just lack branding and communication, I guess. It's purely about marketing and branding. So
Yes.
now they still have their signature, it's really like a classic style. Some people are saying like it's more like a grandpa style.
Yeah, like a pocket. I'd say pocket watch style. Now they're going for that.
Yeah, and you can see, all their like, so they have their this line of products. It's a classic style. It's very nice. They have those amazing dial like guilloche. It's amazing. It's a expertise, from Breguet. This is amazing. But what they like is just a change in the type of things they produce. They could keep, the classic style, but on the side, it would be good, for them to show maybe more changes, in the style. And what I would like for sure is for them to reissue like a Type 20 original style,
Oh yeah, they should. They should. Yes.
The current Type 20, what they produce since the 90s, I'm not a big fan, to be honest. I don't really understand where it's coming from, because it's really different compared to the original clean style from the original Type 20.
Yes.
And I feel, it's still like very big, new type 20. So maybe there was a trend, in the 90s and early 2000 to wear big watches, but these days people are coming back to the simple,
smaller watches.
Watches. And I guess Breguet, they have a lot of potential. It's purely like in terms of innovation and changing the style a little bit, maybe. And they can do it. But then I'm not working for Breguet. I don't know exactly what they plan to do.
Yeah.
I have a passion for that, for the history, for what they did. And now when I speak with people, many people are telling me the same. They would like, Breguet to reissue this Type 20 style. The only watch, like the brown dial Type 20 they issued for only watch, was great, and they did it perfectly, and it got a lot of traction from many people, even people that were not really into military watches. When they saw this Type 20, they really fell in love with the style, and I guess it could be great. It could be a good thing. Yeah.
Another thing, I totally agree with you on Breguet kind of relaunching the original version of Type 20, because that's a really gorgeous watch. I showed that watch to some of my friends that are into like aircrafts and stuff like that. They're not into watches, but when they saw Type 20, they were like, okay, that's the kind of watch that they can actually get their hands on. Another thing about Breguet, I'd say the price point, I'd say it's kind of awkward in my opinion, because if I'm talking about solely trying to attract more customers, Breguet's not the type that attract any new watch collectors. I don't think Breguet's a brand that new watch collectors would lay their eyes on. And how most people would go for a name first, Rolex, whatever, then maybe the look of it, and then the actual functionality. And Breguet, as mentioned before, is really complicated. Like the movements is really immaculate, and people are actually paying for the movement. So what do you, and another thing is that, would you agree that Breguet launched like a series that with a more entry level price point? Do you think that's a good idea? Because we have seen good example of that. Let's say Nomos having really expensive watches and really cheap watches, but they're both doing really well. But then we have Maurice Lacroix with really expensive watch, and then the cheaper one are really just So what do you think about that?
So this is really part of the strategy. This is more like a business strategy and marketing and communication topic, because let's imagine Breguet is positioning itself as a luxury and high-end luxury brand.
Mhm.
So taking a decision to launch an entry-level watch, it's like changing the positioning from the brand. For sure, this is something I would welcome on my side. It's great, but for them, it's like the luxury business is really about, okay, how do you position yourself? Would you accept to propose like a cheaper price? And if this is not falling into like the Breguet strategy, no, they don't have really reason to do that, because it will change the perception from people. If Breguet is starting launching like a 1,000 or between 1 and 3,000 watches or dollars watches, it will really change the perception and the positioning from the brand.
Right.
This is purely a strategy thing. So could they do that? Technically, of course, but now is it benefiting the brand to do that? Maybe not. Maybe not. So luxury brands, whatever, if it's watches, cars, or bags, it's purely in terms of limiting the supply, setting like a huge or like a huge bar, at the entry to limit people, in terms of who can buy those exceptional products. And I guess this is the spirit, And for sure, there is quality behind that. It's justified by the number of hours Breguet is taking to produce just one watch, of course. But now, in terms of strategy, I guess Breguet will keep, positioning themselves, at the same level, I guess.
Because the reason why I asked the question is because I am kind of like scared for like Breguet, as in, because the current watch collecting, I'd say, climate is that people like, so we have like APs, we have Patek Philippe's that are luxury, but they're not like super complicated, like super luxurious, like MB&F or maybe Breguet and stuff like that, right? So, and then Breguet's in this like when they go luxury, when they go complicated, they're like super complicated and super luxurious. But other than that, they're like in between, like in this awkward zone. And the current watch collecting climate is that people don't really care about that. So I'm kind of scared that Breguet may, have its downfall in the next, 10 or 20 years. That's why I'm asking, do you think it's right?
No, yeah, it's really, it all depends on how they communicate, how they can promote themselves or show that they bring value. How they can show that they are better than others, or they bring something different. This has been the case for many years. When Breguet, so Abraham Louis Breguet, the first watchmaker, he innovated so much, he invented so many things that it became like the reference in Europe very quickly. And now it's ready for Breguet to say, okay, how can they provide something new, something interesting, and it's purely about that, yeah. And then let's see how the market evolves, during the upcoming years, because everything can change. There could be like a change in interest, or people could get more interest in Breguet, depending on what they do. Yeah, it's
right.
I cannot predict the future. Personally, I would prefer, of course, for Breguet to rise and to become more visible. But I'm not working for Breguet, so I cannot do anything. I'm just checking what they're doing. But of course, I notice the same thing as you.
I would love to see brands like Breguet to rise up to the top, because brands like these that are actual, like, that have put so much into the watchmaking aspect of their watches deserve way more recognition than not directing this at anyone, especially after the new Rolex release, right? So, like brands like Breguet, I would really love to see them rise to the top. And today I've learned so much more about you as a watch collector, and learned so much more about Breguet. And this has been an honor for me, and I'm sure the audience enjoyed all the stories, all the interesting anecdotes you shared with us. And thank you once again today, Chris, for coming onto the podcast, and I'd say
Yeah, thank
teaching
you.
me about Breguet. I've learned a lot, man. You are one true Breguet expert, man.
No, yeah, no, I'm not an expert. This is a funny thing. It's more a passion, but there are so many people being experts in Breguet, in all the technical aspects of pocket watches. So it's more a passion,
Yeah.
and I'm not really an expert, but I have knowledge. I know a couple of things, but watchmakers. There are many watchmakers I met who know a lot about Type 20, because they spend their time repairing those watches. And this is a funny thing where I notice that many people in France, they know a lot about Type 20, because for many years they repaired those watches. They were able to buy them when they were really cheap, and I discovered on the pocket watch side, I discovered that there are so many pocket watch collectors, and young people or aged people also. But
Oh, okay.
there's like a diversity in the pocket watch collectors also. This is a funny part. But thank you so much for your time, and thank you for inviting
Thank
me.
you. No, yeah,
That was a
I should
pleasure.
thank you. Yeah.
That was a pleasure.
It's-
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to have you here on too. So, thank you guys for listening to this podcast. And make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, Gentleman Pursuits, and follow us on Instagram, Spotify, and follow Chris, of course. His Instagram handle will be posted on the description, and I will put it on my Instagram story soon when this episode comes out. So, yes, thank you once again, Chris. I hope you enjoyed this little podcast with me. I hope it's not too bad. I hope I didn't do a bad job.
That was great. No, that was great. And it's a first time for me also,
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
first time.
Thank you so much. So, have a nice day, guys. Have a nice day, Chris. And
Thank you very much again.
I hope to see you soon. Maybe talk again. We can have another episode, right? So, yes, thank you. And I'll see you in the next episode.